iConvo podcast, the iconic conversations with inspirational leaders that aren't just doing well in life, but are doing good in the world, that are sharing their knowledge, sharing their wisdom, and making this world a better place. And really specifically talking about business leaders and people that are making impact and sharing the lessons that they've picked up along the way, sharing the tips, the strategies that can ultimately make the biggest difference and the biggest impact. Because businesses, small, mid-sized businesses, are the backbone of our economy, of this country, and of the world. Right. So many people look at the big businesses and think that that's it, but it's not. It's a medium and small sized businesses. And I will tell you that I am honored to have today's guest, and of course my co-host here with iConvo, the one and only Brad Korn. But who we have coming in today is the one and only Michael Gerber, the author of the E-Myth book series, talking about everything business. So without further ado, let me bring them on stage. The one and only Michael Gerber and Brad Korn. What's up, Brad? Good morning.
Hey,
Thanks for being
hey, good
here.
morning. Hey,
I'm gonna
hey,
put
good morning. How are you?
all good, all good, all good. You know, Brad, I just realized the logo is right on top of your forehead. So
Yeah.
as you guys start speaking, no, as you start speaking, I'll see if I can move it to the other side. But we are streaming that right now on LinkedIn, X, formerly known as Twitter, and on YouTube as well. And we'll be probably editing this and posting it on all the platforms as well. So without further ado, Michael Gerber, it is such an honor to speak with you. I've heard about you. I've grabbed your books, and of course, Brad is always speaking about the one and only Michael Gerber. So it's an honor to be here with you, especially today on your, is it your 69th birthday?
89th.
89th. Oh my, you know what? You look pretty good. I was just saying how you kind of, if you had a white tie, you'd look like a mafia boss today. But it is so good. It is so good to have you on here, and what an honor and opportunity to have this conversation with you. So again, happy birthday on your 89th birthday. That's amazing. I wish you many, many more. And again, you look amazing, and especially hanging out with the good looking guy next to you. So I'd like to know.
My good buddy Brad Korn.
Yeah, he is. He's an amazing human being, and he's become a very dear friend of mine over the last 4 or 5 years as well. So let me ask you a question, just cutting right to the chase, because these are conversations that we have with iconic leaders, leaders of industry, people that are really making an impact in the world. And you, of course, are one of those game changers, one of those people that is innovative and has helped so many people over the course of your career, and you're still helping other people. So I'd like to know, how did the idea for the E-Myth, the first book, come to pass?
Well, it's an interesting story. Actually, it's a twofold story. I have two very exceptional brother in laws. The one brother in law, who's no longer with us, he passed about 5 years ago, Marty Sklar. Marty Sklar was the leader of Walt Disney's Disney Imagineering. Marty opened up every single one of the Disney parks. And he started with Walt when he graduated from UCLA to become Walt's also doing, writing letters to people for Walt, writing things about Walt, doing this, doing that, doing anything and everything that Walt needed him to do, as Walt opened up the very first park in Anaheim, Disneyland. So Marty joined Walt when he opened up his very first park, Disneyland. And Marty went on to open up every single Disney park in the world. Think
Wow,
about that.
that's amazing.
Disney Imagineering. Marty led it. And the reason I say that about Marty, my brother in law, is because Marty used to tell me stories about Walt. And essentially, he said he was the most impossible man anybody has ever worked for. The most impossible man anybody had ever worked for. Walt. In Imagineering, these enormously creative people that Walt had working for him would take their original idea to Walt and he'd say, "Seen it, take it back. Seen it, take it back." seen it, take it. So everybody had this experience of going and creating these most extraordinary things and taking them to Walt, and Walt would just dismiss it like that.
Hmm.
Show me something I haven't seen before, Walt would say. Show me something I haven't seen before. Think about that. So Marty used to share that with me. And Marty told me about a time, and this is most exceptional time because it had such a profound impact upon me and my work. He said his team went to meet with Walt for a meeting, and Walt said, "Guys, I'm really sick and tired of this old conversation. Come back tomorrow because we're going to dream tomorrow in the dreaming room." Marty said, "What's that?" Walt said, "See you later, Marty." That's what Walt would do. "See you later, Marty. See you later, Marty." So the next day, they went to the dreaming room. That was the last time they ever did that. But when Marty told me that story, I said, "That's what's missing. That's what I got to do." So I put that away in my mind, and that became the very first thing we did when I left E Myth behind to create the new E Myth. How was I going to create the new E Myth with my loving partner, Luz Delia, my wife? And that began to create the new E Myth in the new dreaming room. And I'll tell you lots and lots and lots about that, but we'll leave that for another time. The second brother in law, who's still alive, his name is Ace Remus. Ace is married to my youngest sister, Marcia. Ace owned an advertising agency in Silicon Valley. And Ace came to me, I was 38. Ace came to me and said, "Mike, I want you to come visit one of my clients. I create these incredible leads for my clients, and they don't know what to do with them. So I want you to come and meet with one of my clients to figure out what's missing in this picture, what's wrong, because it's obviously a problem." I said, "Ace, I don't know anything about business," because I didn't. And Ace said, "Michael, you know more than you think you do. Just come, let's see what happens." So I'm always intrigued when somebody says, "Let's see what happens," because that's the story of my life. Let's see what happens. So went to meet with Bob and Ace. And Ace introduces me to Bob, Michael, Bob. "Listen, guys, I'm going to take off for about an hour, get to know each other," and he splits. So Bob looks at me, sort of discomfited. "Where'd Ace go?" And he says, "Michael, what do you know about my business?" And I said, "Nothing, Bob." And he looks even worse. So, "Well, if you don't know anything about my business, what do you know about my product?"
Hmm.
I said, "Less than that, Bob." So obviously, Bob says to me, "So if you don't know anything about my business and you don't know anything about how in the hell can you help me?" I said, "I haven't a clue, Bob. But Ace thinks I can. Let's find out because we got an hour to kill." So what I did was what I always do. I started asking Bob questions. The more questions I asked Bob, the more it became clear to me that he kept on giving me anecdotal answers. And as I went that and pursued that, it became obvious to me not only didn't I know anything about Bob's business, but Bob didn't either. And it blew my ever loving mind. How in the world could a guy in Silicon Valley start his own company, create his own product, and not know what a business was?
Hmm. That's an interesting
Bob,
conundrum that.
do you have a selling system? Bob said, "What's that?" I said, "Bob, that's what your sales guys should be using instead of what they're doing now." "What are they doing now?" "Well, he hires salespeople who have sales experience, who also understand the technology. And he figures because if they know how to sell and they understand technology, they'll know how to sell his product. And of course, they don't. Bob, it's up to you to provide them with the system to do that. He said, Michael, I don't know how to do that. Can you create a system for me? I said, sure, Bob. So Ace comes to pick me up. He said, what happened? I said, Bob retained me to create a selling system for him. He said, Michael, how in the hell can you do that? You don't know anything about his business. You don't know anything about his. I said, Ace, that's what I told you before we came here. But I figured out I knew more than Bob did. And it's obvious as well, I know more than you do. So I'm going to create a selling system for Bob. And I can assure you that if Bob doesn't know how to do that, probably more than likely, none of your clients know how to do that.
Yeah, and that's something that, I think that most business owners, that's like that conundrum. That's the problem that they have is most business owners don't know the business that they're in. They don't know the game of business. And it doesn't matter what business it is because ultimately the game of business is all the same. The core principles are all
Yeah.
the same.
Well, and that's why I was so excited to have Michael be one of our very first interviews because this is exactly the conversations Tony and I have with people every day for the last 4 years. It's like, what business are you in? And yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
Some
simple.
people don't even, yeah, interestingly, some people don't even know the business that they're really in, right? They
Of
think they're
course
in the
not.
business of selling this product, but ultimately, are they really in that business or are they in the business of making that person feel good because of the result or the outcome that that product is going to give them,
Yeah.
right? So we're all in the people business, and so many people think they're selling widgets. No, you're in the people. We're all in the people business for the most part, right? The majority of businesses. So I
Well,
think it's brilliant, and so many.
you understand, Tony. It's even more systemic than that. And that's when you asked me the question, so how to write my first book. So I would then work with client after client after client of Ace's clients.
Hmm.
Somebody in the furniture business, somebody in the shoe business, somebody in the dress business, somebody, et cetera, et cetera. And doing the identically the same thing I just described. And it became absolutely transparent to me. The problem wasn't that they didn't know how. The problem was that Ace didn't know how.
Hmm.
And Ace didn't want to do what his clients needed me to do for them. So I said, Ace, listen, this isn't going to work anymore. I've learned something so absolutely transformational. I'm going to go out and start my own company to do this. He said, let me get somebody to replace you. So he brought in a guy by the name of Tom Travisano. And Tom sat with me and watched what I did. And then he asked me, so Michael, why are you leaving? I said, Tom, to start my own company. To do what, Michael? To do this, Tom. He said, well, I want to go with you. So Tom joined me to start my very first company called the Michael Thomas Corporation. Get it? Michael Thomas Corporation.
Nice.
The very first business development firm of its kind. Now, the reason I say that to you is because today, if you check it out, there are about 83,000 business coaches in America. Think about that.
Yeah.
83,000 business coaches in America. And they all came from what Tom and I did way back then, starting out in 1977 with our business development
Wow.
firm.
That's a long time. And one of the things that I often say, and I still hold this, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it. What I often tell people is you shouldn't
And
hire a
none
business
of
coach
them,
that's
hear me,
most.
none of them understand it.
Well, that's the thing is, and first of all, a lot of people don't understand, even when they already have their business. But what I tell people is, you have no business being a business coach unless you've signed if you've never signed the front of a check. If you've only ever signed the back of a check, in other words, if you've only ever worked for someone else and don't know the terror of being that entrepreneur in the beginning, that you're writing out checks to pay everybody else, employees and everything else, but there's not enough money to cover, for you to take at the end of the month. If you don't know that terror of that, it's hard to walk people through some of those processes because you've never experienced it. So, and there's a lot of business coaches today in today's world that are 18, 20 years old. They don't know anything about business. They've never even had a real job, and they're business coaches because they took a class or they took a seminar. But if they don't really understand the core of it, it's difficult to really be an effective business coach. Unless, of course, over time they'll develop that skill. But there's a lot of people that don't know anything, and they're misleading people left and right because they don't know themselves.
Yeah, and there's a shortcut to it. I mean, it's the E-Myth.
The
E-Myth
E-Myth.
Revisited.
Let me see if I can flip the mirroring of this so that we
Yeah, and
can
here's the
see
thing
that.
about this, and then I'll have Michael even tell us kind of at 89 years old as he's going, what's even coming. Like you thought this is big when you read it. Wait till you hear what his mind has been generating over the last 89 years or since 77. But this is so simple, and my apparent thing that I've had since I met Michael is we all make everything too damn difficult. We make everything difficult. This is as simple as it gets, and it's as relevant today as it was in 1977. And I've built a real estate business that sells 100 homes a year with it's all driven by systems, not people. So, but Mike, we're at a conference in Houston right now, and what he shared with me that he's going to share on the next, I mean, he's already written E-Myth Beyond the E-Myth, but I think we're beyond the E-Myth on what's coming.
Well, understand that when Tom and I started the Michael Thomas Corporation, Tom said, "So, what's the outcome of all this?" And I said, "Tom, we have to have a dream. We have to have a dream. We have to have a vision. We have to have a purpose. We have to have a mission. And you and I have got to decide what that is before we ever start going to work." And so we spent probably 3 months arguing about why we were doing what we were doing. I finally came to the realization that I had a dream. And my dream was explicitly stated to transform the state of small business worldwide.
Hmm. I love that.
I had a vision. My vision was to invent the McDonald's of small business development services. I had a purpose. My purpose was to make it possible for every small business owner to discover their dream,
Hmm.
their vision, their purpose, and ultimately their mission. Because without a dream, a vision, a purpose, and a mission, there's no platform upon which the second series of 4 steps need to be taken: the job, the practice, the business, the enterprise. So, those eightfold steps, that eightfold path that I've just described to you, really lives at the heart of the work I've been doing all these years. And it's the work of the true entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is 8 distinct personalities: a dreamer, a thinker, a storyteller, a leader, a designer, a builder, a launcher, a grower. The dreamer has a dream, the thinker has a vision, the storyteller has a purpose, the leader has a mission, the designer has a client fulfillment system, the builder has a practice, which is what I call the 3-legged stool: lead generation, lead conversion, client fulfillment, the business format franchise prototype. To lead a business, and the business has a management system to manage lead generation, lead conversion, client fulfillment. Because without a management system, the business isn't going to be able to grow. So the business then is 7 turnkey practices replicated, the franchise prototype replicated explicitly. This is how we do this. This is how we do this. This is how we do this. And this is how we manage the son of a bitch. Go on to the enterprise. And the enterprise has the leadership system, the management system, the leadership system. And the enterprise is up to 7 turnkey businesses, which, if you get the math, is 49 turnkey practices, plus a management system, a leadership system, which is the prototype for a great growing company. And so therein resides the work that we now do, built not upon my dream to transform the state of small business worldwide, but in fact to transform the state of entrepreneurship worldwide. Because not until we transform the state of entrepreneurship worldwide will we ever be able to transform the state of small business worldwide. And until we transform the state of small business worldwide, will we be ever able to transform the state of economic development worldwide. And the minute you get that, Tony, you get the size of what I'm describing here.
It's the foundational principles of that business is to correct, to start with the end in mind, to start with, yeah. By the way, I mirrored the image. You can hold the book up again, Brad. I mirrored the image so people can actually read it. That's why you guys switch sides. So yeah, E-Myth, why businesses don't work and what to do about it. And the one story that you have in here is about the woman with the pie shop. And I think it's brilliant because so many people don't have those SOPs. So many people are in business, but they don't own a business. They own a job, right? Because the minute that they're not there, that business folds. And
Tony, it's because they're not entrepreneurs.
right, exactly
The
right. And
E-Myth.
so, and that's the beauty of what you're doing is you're teaching from the ground up the basics that people need to know of how to build that business instead of just tripping along the way. I'm a perfect example. I got into business. I got into real estate at 18. I really got into my first business probably in my 20 or 21. And I didn't know. I taught myself along the way, and I made so many mistakes because I didn't have mentors at the time. There probably were mentors and coaches, but I didn't know any, right? So I just taught myself, and talk about the school of hard knocks. That's kind of how I came about, and I learned it the hard way, baptism by fire, all the way through, right? So, and I've learned by the mistakes that I've made, and because of that, I've evolved and I've learned, and I've had to put in systems and processes in place so that I can actually at some point have a sellable business. I can have a thriving business because, as you know, 50% of businesses fail within the first 1 or 2 years, right? And 90% don't make it to 10 years. So it does take courage to be an entrepreneur. But I will say to anybody that's watching this right now, get that book, get E-Myth. If you're in business, if you're starting a business or you have a business already, you're thinking about it, even if you work in somebody else's business, by improving your knowledge and wisdom about what it is that you do, you add more value, not just to the company, but you become more valuable yourself. Ultimately, having a business you can walk away from, you can sell, you can take a vacation, because so many people are tied to their business. And one of the big mistakes, especially new entrepreneurs make, like, I'm going to be in my own business because I'm going to have my own time. Well, if you don't have those SOPs in place, you got no time, right?
Yeah, I think that's what's fortunate about well, what I feel luckier than anything is meeting Michael and having him in my life is I did pick up the book. Like the book was there when you started, right?
Right.
I picked mine up when I was 30 years old, 28 years old, something like over 30 years ago. And it was one of the only books I've read cover to cover, like probably 10 times. And it was so simple. I was like, this is so simple. I can do this. And to be in a position in 2015 where I had to be pulled out of my business for 5 months with my wife. My second wife was in a coma. We'd been married for 20 years. She was in a coma and for 5 months, and I had to take her to the best hospital, which was 3 hours away from where we lived. And I was the technician in my business. I had put the systems in place, just like Michael shared in the book, and I just followed the book. So simple that my business ran, and I sold 97 homes without being in my business for 5 months. So what you're talking about is building that entrepreneur, building an actual enterprise that runs without you there every day. And I can tell you right now where I really feel fortunate to be here and to share the message. I didn't have to fail one time, two time, three time. I didn't have to lose six figures. And I hear these stories all the time because I was actually smart enough just to pick up that one book and do it. And it was simple enough for me to do that. I don't have to have those bad experiences. I just have this successful real estate business. And here we are today sharing that message and taking this next level to really, I'm telling you today, what he just shared, 1977, 1947, 1900s to 2025, every single one of those 8 steps are as critical as they've ever been. So the message has not got, it's not old. So quit thinking there's something else better. You and I talk about this every single day on our calls. And it's everybody's looking for something get rich quick, something easy. This will do everything for me. You have to put the E-Myth principles into place into your passion and your business and what you do, and just follow the system.
And it's the foundational principles of it all, right? And so one thing that I'm glad you jumped in and said that I'd love to know how you got to meet Michael Gerber. And I wish I had known, by the way, and grabbed that book 35 years ago when I first got started. And one of the things that one of my mentors has taught me as well, and I'm sure, Michael, that you know who Keith Cunningham is. Keith Cunningham's, he says, stop paying the dumb tax. You're paying dumb tax. And when you learn from other people, that's how you save on some of that dumb tax, by getting the E-Myth, by learning from people who have been where it is that you want to go, right? Stop paying the dumb tax. So how did you guys meet? I'd love to know that, because I
So,
actually know
Johnny,
a bit
I'd
of
love
that story.
to continue this conversation,
Yeah,
but I'd like to do it another time.
Yeah, he's going to be going on stage here in just a minute. So
Oh,
yeah, but I will
we are
just
pushing at
yeah.
we're pushing at the 30-minute mark. All right, so I encourage everybody, and I'm going to give you guys obviously the opportunity to give a last word, but I encourage everybody to get E-Myth. Look up Michael Gerber, look up Brad Korn, because by the way, Brad Korn, and I'll just say it really quickly, met Michael Gerber, I don't even know how many years ago, but wound up co-authoring the E-Myth for real estate agents. And if you don't know who Brad Korn is, I mean, Michael Gerber is a powerhouse. Brad Korn, he's right there as well. So, and Brad, I'm fortunate to have be with me on the iConvo, which, by the way, he helped co-create there, and I'm honored to have him as my co-host on many, if not all, of these. So I'm just, again, happy to be here. Pick up the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and again, it's a series of books. So when you look up E-Myth, there's going to be several copies or several versions of it. But tell us a little bit more about that, where they can find it, what the website is that they can go on to take a look, and where to find you on social media. I'm sure that you've got a social media presence that you're working with. So tell us a little bit more about that, and maybe where they can go and see you live, because you're still out there beating the pavement, which is amazing.
Still out there. Ask Brad. Brad will give you all the data, how to reach us, how to put us together. In fact, you should introduce me to Tony Robbins. Tony knows about my work, but he really doesn't know how serious it is.
It would be
And
cool
if
to have you
Tony
grace
knew
that
how
business mastery.
serious it is, he'd be bringing it to every single human being he speaks to every single day. I promise you that. To
Awesome.
transform the state of entrepreneurship worldwide, to transform the state of small business worldwide, to transform the state of economic development worldwide in earnest. That's how serious it is.
And you ultimately transform people's lives, right? Because by
Of
helping
course,
transform that entrepreneurship, and by people having the ability to have this thing called a small business that they can provide not just for their own families, but provide jobs that then go on to provide the financial resources to help people. That's how we lift people out of poverty. That's how we empower people, by bringing them into this game of ours called business, right? And it is a game ultimately, and it's important to know the rules of the game. And so many people, they don't know the rules of the game. They don't know how to read the scoreboard. They don't know that they need those standard operating procedures. Again, one of the greatest stories in the book of that first book of yours is the woman with the pie shop. That she was the one that was doing all of it, even though she could easily. And that's that's a great part of that, is you taught her how to. There's also a piece, teach somebody else how to do it, so they can come in and back you up and support you,
you
so
got
you
it.
actually have the freedom and time to expand your business. Because what ultimately the entrepreneur needs to do. Oops, camera zoomed in. What the entrepreneur needs to do is to work on his business, not in his business or her business, right? And so many times we get stuck working in our business. We need to work on our business and become the
You got
business
it.
owner, not just
You
the
got
business.
it.
I have a feeling Michael's going to be visiting our iConvo podcast um, more than once. So
You
Cool.
got it. A pleasure, Tony.
Well, it's my pleasure, Michael. I look forward to meeting you in person one day, and
Talk
uh,
to you
and
soon.
and getting to do that. Brad, thank you again for being here. I appreciate you all. And listen, my friends, if this is your first time here with us on iConvo, make sure that you share out this podcast. And it's not hitting the podcast world just yet. Right now, it's just on social media, but probably in the next couple of days, this recording will be live on all the podcast platforms. So look out for it. Follow us. Follow Brad Korn on social media. Follow me, Tony. You can go to tonyrod.com. You can go to Brad. What's your website?
uh, CoachCorn.com is probably the fastest way
Coachcorn.com.
to get to all the stuff. Yeah.
And for Michael Gerber, what's
Michael has
his website?
87 years of Google juice or 89 years of Google juice. So you can find him anywhere. You can type in corn with a K and you'll find me too. But yeah, this was a fun time. So can't wait to see him on stage and hear what's coming next. So we'll bring him back on for that.
Yeah, I wish I was there for it. I will be there probably on the next one. But Michael, thank you very
Got it,
much for
Tony.
gracing
Thank
us, and
you.
I appreciate you. And
Pink
Brad, thank you
Guilty when
again.
we see him next time.
There you go. Sounds good.
All right,
Thank you
buddy.
again, everyone, for watching. Ciao for now. Don't go away, you guys.